Welcome to my crochet circle. This is part 2 of my bodysuit with a high hip line. The link for part 1 will be in the description box below, and I hope you enjoy. To begin my back piece, I will take my 3mm hook and that same yarn I used on the front side, which is a 4-ply cotton yarn, and I will create a slip knot and put my crochet hook through the slip knot. Now I'm going to begin chaining out 13. So 1, 2, 3, 'Once I have 13 chains, I'm going to chain one more. Then I will put my crochet hook through that 13th chain, which is the second chain from the hook, and complete a single crochet. Now I'm going to be single crocheting all the way along this row of chains, placing one single crochet in each chain. And at the very end of row 1, I will have 13 stitches or 13 single crochets total. So now I'm ready to begin row 2, and the pattern for row 2 will be the same going all the way up to row 9. So I begin the row by chaining 1 and turning. Then I will place one single crochet in that very first stitch and continue placing one single crochet going along this row. At the end of the row, I'm going to have a total of 13 single crochets. So yeah, that will be the pattern going all the way up to row 9. Just place one single crochet in each stitch. So I'm going to skip forward to where I have completed row 9, and then I'll be back to show you how to work on row 10. So this is how my piece looks once I have finished row 9, and I have 13 stitches total at the end of each row. So to begin row 10, I will chain 1 and turn, then I will place 2 single crochets into that very first stitch of the row, and that is an increase. So I'm placing my second one now, and then I will continue placing one single crochet in each stitch going along this row, and I'll be doing this until I reach the last stitch of the row. So now when I reach the last stitch, I'm going to place 2 single crochets in that stitch, and that will be an increase. So at the end of this row, I have a total of 15 single crochets. Now I'm ready to begin my next row, so I will chain 1 and turn, then I will place 1 single crochet in the first stitch of the row, and 1 single crochet in each stitch after. So the whole idea behind my back piece pattern, I'm creating coverage by having 1 increase row and 1 regular row of 1 single crochet in each stitch. And by repeating that process, that interval of 1 increase, 1 regular row, I'll be creating enough coverage on my backside. And so this is going to be the pattern going all the way until this back piece reaches from hip to hip on your back side. Keep in mind that it's going to be a high hip point, but I'll be guiding you through the next few rows. But getting back to the pattern, I'm reaching my last stitch of the row, and so I'm placing one single crochet in that last stitch. At the end of this row, I have 15 stitches total. To begin my next row, I will chain one and turn, then I will place 2 single crochets in the very first stitch of the row, aka an increase. Now I will continue to place 1 single crochet in each stitch going along this row until I reach the last stitch. So I've reached the last stitch of the row, and I'm going to place 2 single crochets in it, as known as an increase. And once I finish working in that second single crochet, I will be done with this row. At the end of this row, I should have 17 single crochets total. So because I just finished an increase row, my next row will just be a regular row. So I'll chain one and turn, then I'll place 1 single crochet in the first stitch of the row and 1 single crochet in each stitch after. So at the end of this row, I will still have 17 stitches total. So now I'm just going to continue that pattern of placing 1 increase row. So I'm chaining 1 and turning, then placing 1 single crochet in the first stitch and then a second single crochet in that same first stitch. Then I will continue to place a single crochet in each stitch in between going along this row until I reach the last stitch where I will be placing 2 single crochets in. Then for my next row, I will just place 1 single crochet in each stitch, then continue to repeat this interval of 1 increase row and 1 regular row, all the way until I have my piece reaching from hip to hip. So I'll let you know how many rows I completed once it reaches hip to hip, but I definitely recommend to put it up on your own body so then you can have it custom fit your body. So this is how my piece looks when it has reached a high hip to hip point. I've completed 65 rows of single crochets. To get to this point, I've just continued to repeat that interval of one increase row and one regular row of one single crochet in each stitch. And my last row is just a regular row of one single crochet in each stitch. So now I'm ready to continue working on my back piece. So I'm going to take the front piece that I've already completed, and I'm going to count how many single crochet rows I have. So I counted, and I have a total of 66 single crochet rows, not including that edging row. So go ahead and count how many single crochet rows you have on your bodysuit front piece, and match that same amount of rows on your back side. So because I have 66, I want to go from having 65 rows to having 66 rows of single crochets on my back piece. So to continue, I will chain one and turn, and then I will place one single crochet in each stitch going along this row. So I'm basically just completing one regular row. I'm continuing to complete that one regular row until I have the same amount of single crochet rows as I do on the front. I'm going to continue to place one single crochet in each stitch going along this row. And I want 66 rows because that's how many rows I have on the front side of single crochets. So I'm matching my back piece to the front piece. So your amount of rows might be different than mine, just based on how many single crochet rows you have on your front side. So this is how my piece looks once I have finished my rows of single crochets. So when I lay it down flat on my front piece and I line it up, then you can see it just completely lines up to where the beginning of the double crochet design from the front side. So we're going to do the same thing on the back side. So to begin, I will chain 2, then I'm going to turn and place one double crochet in the first stitch of the row. So to double crochet, wrap the yarn around your hook, go through the very first stitch, then bring your yarn through, go through the first 2 loops, and pull through the last 2 loops. So that's a double crochet, and I'm going to double crochet in the next 14 stitches. So now I have 15 double crochets total in this row so far, and that's including the first one. So I'm going to continue that same design element as the front. So I'm going to chain 3. Then I will place a double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook. So skip 3 stitches and place a double crochet into the 4th stitch from the hook. Then place 1 double crochet in each stitch going along this row until you reach the 19th to last stitch. So a tip for this is to grab a loose little piece of yarn and use it as a place marker. From here, look at the end of your row and count back 19. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Once I reach that 19th to last stitch, I'm going to place my crochet hook through it, and then I'm going to bring my loose yarn through, and that is going to act as a place marker. So for now, continue to place 1 double crochet in each stitch going along this row until you reach the space marker or the 19th to last stitch. So I've reached my stitch before my place marker, and I placed a double crochet in it, and now I'm going to remove my stitch marker and place my last double crochet in that 19th to last stitch. Then I will chain 3 to repeat that design element. Skip 3 stitches and place a double crochet into the 4th. Now I'm going to place 1 double crochet into the next 14 stitches. So now I'm going to continue to place these double crochet rows, except in the beginning and the end of the row I'm going to do a double crochet decrease. So chain 2 and turn, then wrap the yarn around your hook, go through the first stitch, pull your yarn through the first 2 loops, and now before you complete that, wrap the yarn around your hook, go through the second stitch, go through the first 2 loops. Now you have 3 loops left, pull through all 3. So that's a double crochet decrease, and I'm going to continue placing 1 double crochet in each stitch going along this row until I reach that chain 3 from the previous row. So my last double crochet goes into that stitch where the double crochet is coming out of. And now I just have that chain 3, so I'm going to chain 3. Then I'm going to place a double crochet after skipping the chain 3 and going right into that double crochet, which is the 4th chain from the hook, or 4th stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to place one double crochet in each stitch going along this row until I reach the next chain 3 space. So I continue to place one double crochet in each stitch going along this row, and I have one more double crochet before that chain 3 space. So once I do that, I will chain 3, and then I will place a double crochet into the 4th stitch from the hook, which is that double crochet from the previous row after the chain of 3. And now I'm going to continue to place one double crochet in each stitch until I reach the last 2 stitches. So I'll be placing a double crochet in each stitch, but then I'll stop when I reach the second to last stitch, and that's where I'm going to be placing my next decrease. So now that I've reached my second to last stitch, I only have 2 stitches left in the row. I'm going to place my decrease over the last 2 stitches. So you always want to begin each row by chaining 2 and turning. Then you'll wrap the yarn around your hook, go through the first stitch like you're completing a double crochet, but before you complete it, wrap the yarn around your hook and go through the second stitch of the row. Then complete your decrease, and now just continue to place one double crochet in each stitch going along this row until you reach the chain of 3. So I'm completing the last double crochet before I reach my chain of 3, so I'll chain 3. Now I'm going to place a double crochet into the 4th stitch from the hook, which is the double crochet from the previous row. Then I will continue to place one double crochet in each stitch going along until I reach the next chain of 3. Now once I reach my chain of 3, I'm going to chain 3, then I'll place a double crochet into the next double crochet from the previous row. Now I'm just going to continue to place 1 double crochet in each stitch until I reach the last 2 stitches, and that's where my next decrease will go. So the logic behind my pattern right now is that I'm completing the same amount of rows on the back side as I did on the front side of my piece. So right now I'm working on the 3rd row of double crochets, and my front side has a total of 5 rows of double crochets, so that's how many I'm going to work up to. Your front piece may be different, so just work the same amount of double crochet rows as you have on the front. So I've reached the last 2 stitches of my row, and I'm going to place a decrease over those last 2 stitches. And now I'll be repeating this double crochet pattern and chain 3 pattern for 2 more rows until the back side matches the front side for the same amount of double crochet rows. So I always start a row by decreasing in the first 2 stitches, then continue the pattern by placing a double crochet where there's a double crochet, then chaining 3 when you reach the chain 3. And remember to decrease over the last 2 stitches of the row. Now go ahead and continue this pattern until the back piece matches the front piece with the same amount of double crochet rows. And once you complete those double crochet rows, I'll be back to show you how to do the edging. So as you can see, I have 5 rows of double crochets on both the back side and the front side. And now I'm ready to begin my edging. So to begin my edging, I will chain 1 and turn. Then I'll place 1 single crochet in the first stitch of the row, and then continue to place 1 single crochet in each stitch going along this row. Now when I reach my chain of 3, I'm just going to place 1 single crochet in each chain. And I can either go around that chain of 3, but I like to go through the stitch itself through one of those loops so it looks extra clean in the end. And once you do that, continue to place 1 single crochet in each stitch going along the row. And so when you reach the next chain 3 space, just go through the chain and place 1 single crochet in each chain. Now that I've reached the last stitch of the row, I'm going to place a single crochet in it. And then I'm going to chain 2 and place 1 more single crochet into that same stitch. Now the next part of the pattern is to create buttonholes on the back piece, so then we can attach buttons to the front piece, and that's how these are going to be held together. So what I'm going to do is grab a loose yarn to act as a stitch marker, and I'm going to line up my back piece to my front piece. Now if you can look at the front piece, you see at one point it begins to decrease. And there's not a straight edge anymore. So I'm going to line up my last buttonhole where it begins to curve, like right at the end of that straight line. So that is where I'm going to put my crochet hook through, and that is where I'm going to pull my loose yarn through to act as a stitch marker to place my last buttonhole. So now that I've lined up where I'm going to place my last buttonhole, I'm going to place my stitch marker in that stitch as an indicator for where my last buttonhole will go. And so as you can see on the front piece, there is that straight line, and my stitch marker is right where that straight line begins to curve into where the hip line is. So to make my buttonhole, I am going to chain 3, and that is just because I'm using a small button, so you want to make as many chains as you need to make your button fit. So once you have your desired chain, place a single crochet into that same stitch where your chain 3 is coming out of, and take your button and make sure that it fits through that hole that you created. I have a little button, so a chain of 3 is going to be okay. So at this point, you're going to want to grab the button that you're going to use and pull it through that chain space, just so you know that your button is going to fit once you're ready to put this together. Now I'm going to be working in 5 single crochets going along this side, and I like to put 2 single crochets in each double crochet spot. So that's 2. Then I move to the next double crochet and put 2 more. Now I move to the next double crochet and place 1 single crochet in it. So this is going to be in total of 5 single crochets in a row. And now I'm going to add another buttonhole. So for my small button, I chain 3. Your chains may be different, but once you have your chain, place 1 single crochet in that same double crochet area. Now continue this pattern of 5 single crochets in between your buttonholes. So that's 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now once I complete this 5th single crochet, I'm going to chain my buttonhole. So I chained 3 and I'm placing 1 single crochet in the same stitch where the last single crochet went. Now place 5 single crochets again. And because I'm working in the single crochet rows, I'm just placing 1 single crochet in each single crochet row. So now I'm working in my 5th. And so it's time for another buttonhole. So I'm going to chain 3, then work 1 single crochet into the same stitch where that other single crochet was before the chain of 3. Next, I'm going to place 5 single crochets going along the side of this piece, and that should take me to where my stitch marker is, and so that's going to be where I put my very last buttonhole. Once I have 5 single crochets, I'm going to chain 3, then place 1 single crochet into the same stitch. Now I'm going to continue to place 1 single crochet going along the whole side of this piece. I'm done with my buttonholes, so it's just 1 regular single crochet going all the way along. And I will be back to show you how to round the corner at the very bottom of your back piece. So I've gone all the way down to the very bottom of my piece, and I'm working in my last single crochet on that side. So once I work that last single crochet of that side, I am going to chain 2. Now I'm going to place 1 single crochet into the same stitch where my last single crochet went. And I'm going to continue to place one single crochet going along the very bottom of my piece. And now as you reach the last stitch on the bottom of your piece, place one single crochet in it, then chain 2, and place one more single crochet in that same stitch. Okay, now you're ready to work single crochets on the other side of your piece. So continue to place one single crochet going along the side of your piece, and in a moment I'm going to show you where the next stitch marker goes, where your first buttonhole will be. In order to determine where your stitch marker will go, where that first buttonhole will be, you want to look at your single crochet rows and count down. So for me, I have a total of 9 single crochet rows until I reach my last buttonhole. And so I'm just going to count down in the same manner on the opposite side. And that is where I'm going to place my stitch marker. You may have a different amount of rows, but just count how many you have and do the same on the opposite side. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So that is where I'm going to put my crochet hook through, and I'm going to grab my loose yarn and pull it through that stitch in order to mark where my first buttonhole will go. And so now if you look at both sides together and you go across the row where that very bottom buttonhole is, you'll see that you are placing your last buttonhole at the same row on each side. So now I'm going to continue to place one single crochet going along the side of this piece until I reach my stitch marker. So once I reach the stitch marker, that's the point where my first buttonhole goes, but until then, just one single crochet in each stitch. So now we're just mirroring the opposite side of this back piece. So now that I've reached the stitch where my stitch marker is, I'm going to place one single crochet in it. Then I'm going to chain the amount of chains I need for my buttonhole. For my buttons, it's going to be 3. Then I'll place one single crochet in the same stitch where I placed the last single crochet, and continue to place 5 single crochets in a row. That's 3, 4, and 5. So now I'm ready for my next buttonhole. I'm going to chain 3, then I'm going to place a single crochet in the same stitch where my last single crochet was, and now I'm going to place 5 single crochets in a row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So then I will chain 3 and place a single crochet in the same stitch where my last single crochet was. Next, I'll repeat the pattern by placing 5 single crochets in a row. Once I have 5 single crochets, I'm going to chain 3. Then I'll place one single crochet in the same stitch where that chain 3 is coming out of, and I place the last single crochet. So now I'm placing 5 single crochets in a row. So I'm placing my 5th one now into that very corner stitch at the top of my back piece. Then I'm going to chain 3 and place one single crochet in that same corner stitch. And that was my last buttonhole. And so to round the corner, I'm going to chain 2. Then I'm going to place a slip stitch into that very first stitch of the row. So I'm putting my crochet hook through, bringing the yarn through, and pulling the yarn all the way through, and that completes the edging. So we're really close to the end now. And to complete my row, I'm going to chain 1, pull it tight, and snip it. So now with the back piece complete, we're ready to make the straps on the front piece. So grab your yarn, pick up your front piece, and so at the very top center of your front piece, you have that chain of 2. What I want to do is take my crochet hook and place it through the single crochet right next to that chain of 2. So my strap is going to be 4 chains wide, or 4 stitches wide. So I'm taking my yarn and attaching it to that single crochet at the center of the top, and I'm placing a double knot to secure it. Now I'm going to take my crochet hook and put it through that stitch where the double knot is coming from. Then I'm going to pull my yarn through and chain 1 to completely secure it. So to begin, I will chain 1, place 1 single crochet in that same stitch where my chain 1 is coming from, where I placed the double knot. Once I complete that single crochet, I will chain 2. Then I will skip the chain of 2 and place a single crochet into the next stitch after that chain of 2, which is the single crochet. And that is the last stitch for row 1. of my strap. To begin row 2, I will chain 1 and turn. Then I will place 1 single crochet into the first stitch of the row where my chain 2 is coming from, and I'm working in my loose yarn into these stitches so I don't have to sew it in later. So with that single crochet complete, I will chain 2. Then I will skip the next 2 stitches or the next 2 chains and place 1 single crochet into the next stitch, which is the last single crochet of the row. So this is going to be the pattern for my strap for a while. I'm going to chain 1 and turn. Then I'll place 1 single crochet in the first stitch of the row. Now I'm going to chain 2, skip the chain of 2 and place a single crochet into the last stitch of the row. Now I'm going to chain 1 and turn. Then I'm going to place 1 single crochet in the first stitch of the row where my chain 1 is coming from. Again, I'm bringing my loose yarn through that stitch so I don't have to sew it in later. And I'm completing my single crochet. Then I'll chain 2, place a single crochet after skipping the chain of 2 into the next stitch. And I completed the row. So now I'm going to chain 1 and turn. Then I'm going to place 1 single crochet in the first stitch of the row where my chain 1 is coming from. I will chain 2 and place 1 single crochet into the next stitch after skipping the chain of 2. So then I'll chain 1 and turn. Then I will place 1 single crochet in the first stitch of the row. So this is going to be the pattern for the strap. Go ahead and continue this on your own. If you need a refresher on how to do it, just rewind back to the beginning where I do the strap, because it's the same pattern of having a single crochet in the beginning of the row, chain 2, and a single crochet at the end of the row. So go ahead and continue to do this on your own until you have a total of 91 rows, and that includes the very first row that you did. So once you have a total of 91 rows, I'm going to be back to show you how to finish off your strap with a few more rows. So this is how your strap should look once you finish a total of 91 rows. Don't stress out too much about it being precisely 91 rows. You just want it to go around your neck. So to work on the last few rows of our strap, I am going to taper off. So to do so, I will chain 1 and turn. Then I'm going to place 1 single crochet in the first stitch of the row, and then I will chain 1. Now I'm going to skip the chain 2 and go directly into the single crochet, which is going to be my last stitch of the row, and I placed a single crochet in that stitch. Then I'll chain 1 and turn. Then I will place a single crochet in the first stitch of the row, chain 1, and place a single crochet in the last stitch of the row after skipping that chain of 1. So now I'm going to chain 1 and turn. Then I will place 1 single crochet in the first stitch of the row. I will skip the chain of 1 and go directly into the last stitch by placing a single crochet. So I have 2 single crochets in a row together. Now I'm going to chain 1 and turn. Then I'm going to place 1 single crochet in the first stitch of the row and place 1 more single crochet in the next stitch. So now I'm going to chain 1 and turn and place a single crochet decrease. So to do so, I will put my crochet hook through the very first stitch of the row, like I'm preparing for a single crochet. But before I pull my yarn through, I'm going to go directly into the second stitch of the row with my crochet hook and bring my yarn through. So now that I have 3 loops on my hook, I'm going to pull through all 3. Then I will chain 1 and turn, and I only have 1 stitch left, so I'm going to place 1 single crochet in that only stitch of the row. So that is it. I'm going to chain 1, pull it tight, and snip it, and I've completed my strap. So next you want to do the same thing to the other cup and place a strap into that very top center, chain 2 and single crochets around it. So I'm going to leave you to do that on your own. And if you need help, just rewind back to the first strap we did. It's the same exact pattern. So pause the video from here, and when you finish your strap, come back to learn how to sew in your loose ends with the crochet hook. So the method behind this is you want to take your crochet hook and put it through stitches going along near where your loose end is coming out of. At first you want to just go back and forth in one direction, pulling your loose yarn through. And you also have the option of using a yarn needle to do this as well, but as usual I can't find mine. And so once you have gone about halfway of your loose yarn length, you want to begin working in the opposite direction, bringing it back and forth. And working in 2 directions prevents your loose yarn from coming undone later on. So feel free to work in the rest of your loose ends, and I'll be back to show you how to work in the buttons. So next you're going to need to grab a needle and some thread and some buttons that fit through your buttonholes. So I use 2 big buttons for the bottom of my piece and a total of 10 small buttons for the side. So I'm going to begin working in the bottom piece. I'm lining up my back piece and my front piece. And I want to make sure to add enough space so that when my piece is being pulled, there's no gap at the bottom. So it looks like right around there is where I want my buttonhole. And so I'm going to grab my needle that is already threaded. And I'm poking my needle through the back into the buttonhole. Then I bring it around to the front, pull it through, and to secure it, I always tie a double knot at this point. Now with my thread secured onto my piece with the button, I'm going to continue to work in the button. So I'm going to be poking my needle from the back, bringing it up to the front, and poking it back through to the back. And I'm just repeating the sequence until my button is secured with a good amount of thread. So now after working in my thread a few times, I am just going to secure this onto my piece by tying a double knot with that first loose strand and the strand that is on my needle. Now, I'm not an expert in sewing in buttons. I just, do it to where it attaches on. However, if you want a better understanding of how to sew in buttons, I would recommend looking at other YouTube videos. And you could probably find a neater method. But I just want my button to stay on, so this is okay with me. Now, one of my loose strands is a little too long and I don't want it to poke out when I'm wearing it, so I'm going to take my crochet hook and work it underneath where my button is and just sew that loose yarn through so that any excess isn't long enough to poke out through the sides. So there you have it, our first button is attached. I'm going to test it out by taking my buttonhole and seeing if it fits around my button. And as you can see, the button is high enough away from the edge that when it's pulled, it doesn't create a gap from the two pieces. So now I'm going to work in my next buttonhole using the same method as last buttonhole. Now with my second large button complete, I'm ready to begin working in my smaller buttons on the side. So I'll guide you on button placement, and then feel free to work in the buttons on your own. So what I'm going to do is look at my back piece where the buttonholes are. The first buttonhole happens to be at the very top corner of my back piece where I have the top double crochet row. And so I'm going to look at my front piece and go to the top double crochet row and place my buttonhole right at the top corner of that double crochet row. So that's where the placement for the first button is. And I went ahead and attached the first button on the opposite side as well. So now I'm going to get ready to place my second buttonhole. If you look at the back piece, the second buttonhole goes right at the bottom of the second double crochet row. So count down 2 rows, place it at the bottom of that row, and work in your button. And so I worked in my second buttonhole on both sides. The placement is the same on both. So now I'm ready to work in my third buttonhole, and if you look at your back piece, you can see that if you go down 2 double crochet rows, you will line up, and that's where your buttonhole will go. For me, it helps when I am counting rows. However, you can also eyeball it, just line it up, and you will see where the button needs to go to attach to the buttonhole. Now with the third button set, I'm ready to begin working on my fourth button. So I'm going to line it up, see where the buttonhole is on the back side, and place that buttonhole in that same place on the front side. Now on my piece, the distance between the third buttonhole and the fourth is 1 double crochet row and 2 single crochet rows. So that is how I'm going to space it out on the front. So I'm going down 1 double crochet row and 2 single crochet rows. 1, 2. So that is where I'm going to put my fourth buttonhole. Now once you've attached your fourth buttons, let's go ahead and place the fifth and last buttons. Now if you look at your back piece, you'll notice that the distance between your fourth and fifth buttonhole is 4 single crochet rows. So I'm going to take my front piece and count down 4 single crochet rows from where my fourth button is, and that is where my fifth button will go. Now once you're done attaching your 2/5 buttonholes, you are done with this piece. It was an intricate pattern. I love how it came out. It's very body fitted because you can make it custom fit your body. And I hope you love it as much as I do. So thank you for being a part of my crochet circle. Make sure to subscribe for more classic crochet tutorials.